welcome to the Intuitively Wild podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Levine. Living intuitively wild is about coming back home to ourselves. Here we talk about how to live connected to ourselves, others, and nature, and make a commitment to radical authenticity, vulnerability, and acceptance. On this podcast, we delve into a wide range of topics that span the human experience. We peel back the layers and talk about the things that are often not talked about. This is a space for us all to walk and wander this path of life together. Let's dig into our roots and go deep. Hello, welcome back to the podcast. I am sitting here on a very rainy Friday, and I have my candle lit. Theo's here with me, and I'm excited to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is all about our intuition. And today specifically, I want to talk about how to tune into our intuition when making big decisions, or really any decision that our brain starts to get in the way with and we feel confused and disconnected and a little lost. And this topic is on my mind right now because I have just had this experience personally where I had to make a really big decision and my brain was really getting in the way. I am very intuitive led. I let my intuition guide me and I want it to guide me. And I was feeling so frustrated because I couldn't have that full body trust in my intuition. I couldn't really grasp onto it with my whole being because my brain was getting in the way. And my brain was getting in the way because it was a big decision. And I was afraid of making the wrong decision. I couldn't really understand why my intuition was telling me what it was telling me. And so all these thoughts and fears and attachments and identities, it was all popping up. It was all clouding my intuition. It was making me really confused and frustrated and overwhelmed. And it was really exhausting. And I know we have all had this experience. I work with a lot of people who have no connection to their intuition or think that they have no connection to their intuition and override it without even realizing and have resistance to trusting their intuition, to living an intuitively led life. And that's totally understandable. It's really scary to tune out the noise and turn off our brain and just feel into what our intuition is telling us. And then I also work with people who want to live an intuitive led life and are learning how to trust that and strengthen that and follow that, but still having moments where they don't know what their intuition is saying, when they can't hear it, when they can't understand it, when they can't connect to it. So for the sake of this podcast, let's say that you have some sort of connection to your intuition. You know how it usually feels or sounds or looks like to you. And you've been working with it. You've been strengthening it. You've been connecting to it. But you're going through a moment, an experience where that's feeling muffled and clouded and you're lacking that trust and confidence in what your intuition is saying. The first step is always the mindfulness practices. It's always to quiet the noise. I always begin with meditation. So I sit in meditation and see if something comes to me. I just get quiet. I close my eyes and I notice and I observe and I breathe. And for this kind of situation, I don't like any guided meditation. I really need to tune out the noise. And now more than ever, I've been feeling extra sensitive to external stimulus and all the noise and really feeling the need to get quiet and just be with myself. So I've been just doing silent meditations where I am focused on observing and noticing and watching my thoughts and sifting through them. just having a little meeting with myself. What's going on? How am I feeling? Why am I feeling this way? And noticing my thoughts, letting them go, and seeing where they lead me. And not in a way where I'm overthinking them, in a way where I'm detaching from them and observing them and noticing where they're rooted from and where they can guide me. But any type of meditation can work here. Also, even just calming yourself down, regulating your nervous system, getting yourself to a really grounded, calm place can allow you to reconnect to that intuition. Because when we're dysregulated, it's really hard to hear what our intuition is telling us and to tune out the external noise. So even just a practice that calms you down in any way can turn up the volume on your intuition and that inner voice and what it's trying to tell you, and turn down the dial of your thoughts and fears and anxieties and all the external noise. So that is a really, really good place to start. Secondly, I always turn to my journal. Always. For me, as this has been happening, I've been turning to my journaling more and more to tune into my intuition. And I've been trying to write to myself, either from my intuition or from the universe. So I will say, "Dear universe, please tell me what I need to know." And then I'll just write, just stream of consciousness, write. Or I'll say, "Intuition, please guide me. Please talk to me. What do I need to know?" And this helps me a lot. The key here is to not stop and think or judge or analyze what you are saying. It is just to write and see what comes up without you thinking about it. And to just notice and observe and see what comes out of you. I think you will be very surprised. The key is to remind yourself that there are no judgments here and there are no expectations. And there are also no requirements to follow through on anything that comes up through your journaling or through any of these practices. If you get an intuitive hit while you're meditating that you have to change your life or do something drastic, that doesn't mean you have to do it ever or right now. So just give yourself permission to get the insights, to get the connection, to get the, I don't like the word download for lack of a better word, to get the download. Because that will remind yourself that you are safe to receive this information. Because you don't have to follow through. You're not required to take the action steps and implement it into your life if you don't want to, or if you're not ready to, or if you don't feel safe enough yet to do so. And of course, other mindfulness practices work. You could do yoga, you could go for a walk, you could talk to a friend who you feel really safe with. Anything that has proven to connect you back to yourself. When you are feeling disconnected and when you are seeking answers and clarity and inner guidance, that is the place to start. The practices that bring you back to yourself. And practices such as tinctures or herbal remedies that will help ground you and strengthen your intuition and bring you back to that sense of connection, and body oils that will bring you back into your body, and even smells and scents and textures that will reconnect you to yourself, and also pranayama, breath work, any tool that connects you back to your body, back to your intuition, back to your authentic self, and works for you. These are all tools I've been relying on heavily to get me through this time and bring me back to my center. And they work even better because I use them regularly, daily. They're not just something I use in acute times because I already have that foundation. And this is a little tangent, but it's related. I was talking to someone really recently about how we are so busy doing and taking in so much noise and conditioning around who we are meant to be and what we're supposed to do and how we're supposed to act and dress and live and all the things, that we forget who we actually are. Like we forget what we like to do, what we authentically like to do, and how we authentically like to dress and eat and move and be. And it's become unnatural to do some of these activities. So it can be really helpful in order to remind yourself of who you authentically are to schedule these things into your day. So if you are someone who really loves to cook, make sure that you are cooking every day. Or if you're someone who really loves to listen to music, schedule time in your day that you know you're going to listen to music. This is something that actually happens for me. I love listening to music, but I get so caught up in podcasts where I'm learning about things, or I get so caught up in work, or just all these other things I have to do that I'll notice I haven't listened to music in a really long time, and that actually impacts my mental health and also impacts my authentic self, because listening to music makes me feel like the truest, most connected version of myself. It makes me feel like myself. And so bringing more activities into your day that truly make you feel like your most authentic self can reconnect you to your intuition as well, because it's reminding you of who you are at your core. Okay, but now let's say you've done all these things. You've done all the things to calm your nervous system, be more mindful, connect to your intuition, connect to your authentic self, and you're still feeling so confused and can't figure out what your intuition is trying to tell you and what the right quote unquote decision is. The next step is to really start to pay attention to what is getting in your way. For a lot of people, it's our thoughts. Our thoughts are coming in to analyze the situation, to make the decision, to try to control and predict and figure it all out. Our brain wants to make the logical decision. It wants to make sure that we're making the right decision. It wants to understand the decision. It wants to make the decision that everyone else will support and that it won't be judged, or that everyone else will think is right. So we have to start to understand the thoughts that are popping up that are blocking us. When you can observe your thoughts and seek to understand them and understand where they're coming from and what they're trying to tell you, what they're trying to do for you, so much in your life can shift, because you are no longer a slave to your thoughts. You no longer are giving them the power and the permission to control your life. You are just observing them and then deciding whether or not they are serving you right now, or whether or not they are what you need to listen to right now. Because we can't always control our thoughts, but we can control the actions we take. And I talk about this with so many people, and it has been so true for me in my recovery, is we can have urges and desires to act in one way that are in accordance to who we used to be, or past behaviors that we're trying to let go of. And that's okay. It's okay to have those thoughts, but we get to choose if we listen to them or not. We get to choose who we are becoming now by choosing our actions and how we embody, how we live. Your thoughts are not facts, and they're really not how we are meant to make decisions. There's something in human design called passenger consciousness, and it's the idea that we are just passengers in this body. And I don't want to get too meta or existential, so I won't go down that thread too far. But in human design, we are meant to listen to our strategy and our authority and our design in order to lead our life, in order to make all of our decisions. And we are not here to listen to our mind. Our brain is good for creativity and getting things done throughout the day. But when it comes to decisions, we are not meant to listen to our mind. And we are just here to observe it, to be the passenger, to be the noticer. And that has really helped me. When I was making this big decision that I made recently, I started just noticing my thoughts. And I said to myself, if I'm the passenger and I am not here to listen to my thoughts, I'm here to listen to my strategy and my authority, to how my body is responding and what my emotions are telling me, my intuition is telling me, then what is the answer here? And then it started to become much clearer to me. If I can take away all the noise, take away all the thoughts, detach from everything except for that physical response within me, it's much clearer. It's much easier to tune back in. And our brain will try really, really hard to grab our attention. Because, like I was saying before, we are conditioned to believe that it is meant to make all our decisions and that our thoughts are who we are and our thoughts decide and define and dictate. And it's really hard to detach from that. And we have a lot of attachments in the mind. Our identity is in our mind. Our ego is in our mind. And this was something that was coming up for me a lot as well, was I noticed that something that was getting in the way of me making a decision was attachment to identities. I had attachments to certain identities that would, in order for me to still hold on to this identity, it would require me to make a certain decision. But that wasn't the decision my intuition was telling me. And so my brain was really fighting against that. And I had attachments to past identities, and a part of me really wanted to hold on to these past parts of me. And I had to choose to let them go and to know they're still a part of me, but I'm evolving into something new and changing a lot, and that's okay. And that requires me to make decisions for this version of me and not just in alignment with this past version of me who I love and is still a part of me, but is now shifting into a different form. And so we have to allow ourselves and be willing to make decisions that go against who we thought we were and who we think we should be. We have to be willing to let go of these identities and these attachments. And honestly, it gave me a little bit of an identity crisis. I was like, I've had such a strong hold on this label, on this identity, and this shifts everything. If I let go of this, who am I? And I had a bit of an existential crisis, and I came back to, I'm just me. These labels don't define me. I need to trust who I'm shifting into now. And I don't need to understand it or label it or make sense of it. Because not only do we have attachments to past identities or who we think we should be, but also who we think we should become and the future that we're trying to control and predict. If I make this decision and if I attach to this identity and if I do this thing, then my life will end up in this way and I will be this person. But really, we have no idea if that's true or not. And if we're logically trying to figure out the future and decide who we're going to be and what's going to happen, we are blocking ourselves from the life that we are meant to live and the fullest potential of who we are meant to become. And if we take this passenger consciousness stance and just trust that our intuition is going to lead us to even more magic than we could logically think and dictate, then we have to put those predictions and control aside and let our intuition lead. We have to ask ourselves, if our brain wasn't in the way, what would we do? And this is so much easier said than done. This is very challenging and very scary and very uncomfortable, especially if it makes no logical sense to us. And it really is kind of an ego death in a lot of ways, but it comes back to trust. We just have to trust. We have to be willing to take a risk, to do the bold move, to step outside of our comfort zone. And I'm not saying that you're doing anything crazy, that the actual decision that you're making is going to be crazy or drastic or dramatic. I'm saying that going with your intuition over your thoughts is the scary act, is the radical act, and can make us feel really unsteady and ungrounded. And that's why it comes back full circle about doing the mindfulness practices, regulating your nervous system, and reminding yourself that you are safe and that you can make these decisions in this way. At the end of the day, there really is no right decision. Who's to say what's right or wrong, good or bad? There is no black and white. We just don't know. It's the decision that you made in this moment because you felt it was right for you right now. You listened to your intuition, or because you made the decision for some other reason and you had a lesson that you needed to learn and a journey you needed to go down. And that is perfect. That is the decision that you made. We're all moving from the level of consciousness that we're at and the awareness that we are able to tap into at this moment. And that also honestly comes back to a regulated nervous system and this sense of safety that we feel within ourselves. Because if we don't feel safe and if we're really dysregulated and activated, then we can't tap into that trust and that intuition. And you may never know if you made the right decision. Maybe not for a while and maybe not ever. And that's okay. I do believe everything happens for some sort of reason. Sometimes it's just because that's the experience you had to have and you don't have to understand it. And often you make the meaning. You get to choose what the meaning is for you. So if you make a decision and it doesn't turn out how you thought and you're like, why? You get to choose. You get to make the meaning. Nothing is permanent. You can always make a new decision and shift your direction. You can always change your mind. You can always change your mind. You have to allow yourself to change your mind. Again, that comes back to letting go of identities and allowing yourself to change and being willing to let things go and move on. And being willing to be wrong. And not in the way that you made the wrong decision or that you did something wrong, but in the way that you're deciding this isn't working for you anymore. And you don't have to stay with a decision just because you made that decision at a past time. For example, you don't have to stay in a job just to prove a point that you made the right decision, or just because you're afraid of letting things go or admitting that you don't like it or whatever is getting in your way. You don't have to stay. You can make a change. So even if this decision does feel big and scary and dramatic and drastic and life-changing, you can make a new decision in the future. It is not permanent. So if you're sitting here thinking, I've done all these things, or I've listened to everything you're saying, and I still have no idea what my intuition is telling me or what the right decision is for me right now or what to do, then take yourself for a walk and just make a decision and let it be the right decision for you right now. And one practice that I have found really helpful for a lot of people is to play out the decision in your mind, or even journal about it or talk about it. Say you're choosing between two choices, try on them both. Take one and journal about it as if you've made that decision and see how it feels, and then do that with the other one. Or even start looking up things regarding that decision, like how it would impact your life. Like if you are taking a new job, where would you go to lunch, or what coffee shops would you walk past, or what outfits would you wear, and how does that feel, and what would the environment be like, and how would that shift your life? What would your schedule shift to? And just play out all the different scenarios in your head as much as you have the knowledge about, and see how your body responds to that. And do the same with whatever other decisions there are on the table. And I did this recently with the decision I was making, and it was really interesting for me, because when I tried to lean into one of the scenarios in my head for one of the options, I couldn't. I came against a block every time. I tried to do the research and think about how it impacts my life and journal about it, and I had such clarity that this is fully coming from my mind. If I were to make this decision, it's not because my intuition led me there at all. It's because my brain has decided that this makes more sense, or this is the right option, or this is what will maintain my identities and my attachments and my ego. And then when I leaned on the other decision, it was just there. It made sense in the sense that all my energy was moving towards that. My intuition was just, the path had just been laid out to me, and not in a way that it's an easy decision or it will be easy to unfold, but in the way that it just is clear. My intuition is just yeah. Yeah. And this is coming from me. This is how my intuition works, and I've gotten really clear on how it works for me. And so knowing this pattern and this feeling in my body helps me tap into that and have that connection and that reassurance that it is my intuition talking to me. And that's why learning how your intuition talks to you and how these things unfold for you and show up in your life is the most important, because no one else will have the same sensations and experiences as you, especially in regards to your intuition and your design. So understanding yourself, knowing yourself in this way is really important. But this is how I have experienced it and how it shows up for me. And I hope that that's helpful for tuning into your intuition as well. So honestly, the key is to have rituals that you connect to on a regular basis that help build this foundation and continue to deepen your connection to yourself and enrich this relationship with your intuition. That is the place to start, and having that established will serve you when you are feeling disconnected, or when you are feeling really overwhelmed, or when you do have to make choices that your brain is really trying to override and control. And then after that, it's being able to have awareness around your thoughts, to really observe and notice your attachments, your identities, your ego, your judgments, your conditioning, all the noise that is coming from your brain that is trying to run the show. Being able to just notice it and have awareness around it, and also compassion for it and understanding towards it. There's just so much external noise right now. And we have to decide to take responsibility and turn back to ourselves and do what we need for ourselves to live our own lives and make our own decisions based off of our intuition. And this will look different for everyone. And you have to trust yourself. You have to trust yourself and be willing to not understand. Be willing to not understand yourself. Be willing to make decisions based on how it feels, based on that deep inner knowing, and let go of control. Let go of the driving wheel. Your brain has to let go of the driving wheel and just be the passenger. And if you're seeking support on any of this, whether it's how to even begin knowing what your intuition feels like and sounds like, or if you're having trouble understanding your thoughts and your conditioning and your ego and your attachments, or tools to regulate your nervous system, or ways to quiet the noise, or anything in between, just reach out. I would love to help you. I would really, really love to support you on that journey, because that is what Intuitively Wild is all about and where my passion lies. And I really hope that this conversation was helpful for you. If you have any questions or thoughts or want to hear more about something, please let me know. And if you liked this episode, I would just love to hear from you. And if you would like to leave a rating and review, it would mean the absolute world to me. And I will be sharing my news and the decision that led me to have a complete existential crisis recently, but probably in my next solo. So in a couple of weeks. I'm still processing it. I'm still sitting with it, but I've made the decision and it is happening. Anyway, thank you all so much for being here, and I will see you next week. I hope that you lean into self-trust this week and take really good care of yourself. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Intuitively Wild, the podcast. I hope it helped deepen your connection to yourself, sparked some insights, and inspired you to live intuitively wild. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean so much to me if you would share it with others and leave a rating and review. And please reach out to me. I would love to connect with you. I will see you next time for more magic.